2 weeks ago, Muslim terrorists murdered a teacher in France. Samuel Paty was his name. He was teaching students about freedom of expression. As part of the lesson, he showed his students images from Charlie Hebdo, the satirical French magazine that makes fun of everything and everyone, every religion. The reason that was interesting and not just inflammatory or gross is that almost 6 years ago, Muslim terrorists attacked Charlie Hebdo's office and murdered 12 people and wounded 11 more. It was clear a message of censorship, of infidels, of blasphemy, and killing those who defy Islam. And the response by the world's media back then was less than stellar, even worse in some ways than the cowardice shown a dozen years ago in reaction to the Danish cartoons of Mohammed. Back then, the first time, most journalists were just cowards. They were quiet. They didn't publish them. But after Charlie Hebdo, the mainstream opinion was that Charlie Hebdo sort of deserved it. They provoked it. Didn't they know better? And in the 6 years since then, things have moved even further. I'm sure that today most journalists would say that the terrorists were victims of Islamophobia and Charlie Hebdo should have been charged with hate crimes. So there's a lot to talk about, a lot of history, very relevant to France and a school teacher, which is, France is a very secular republic. It's the land of the Enlightenment. So it's interesting and important to teach. And Samuel Paty invited his students, well, to leave the classroom if they were skittish about seeing cartoons or easily offended. Well, they did not leave the class, and they went nuts. I'm talking about the Muslim students. The father of one girl in the class reported Paty to police for pornography because one of the cartoons of Mohammed had him nude. That same father of a student made YouTube videos identifying the teacher, Samuel Paty, including his address, and led protests at the school, calling for him to be banned, calling him a thug. A major mosque followed suit, denouncing the teacher, calling him a thug. A teacher for teaching was a thug. Well, surprise, surprise, another Muslim refugee in France followed the pretty clear instructions he was getting, and he murdered Paty. He paid some school kids 300 euros for them to point out Paty to him. Then he took out a foot-long knife and cut off his head, the preferred method of killing in the Quran when it comes to infidels. Oh, and in case you need more information, that Chechen refugee shouted Allah Akbar while he did it. As the CBC would say, motive was unknown. There were words of opprobrium. Emmanuel Macron, the president, who believes in open borders and mass Muslim immigration, he condemned the killing as terrorism. You would hope so. Macron said it was, quote, a typical Islamist terrorist attack, which seems pretty accurate to me. And he said that Islam is, quote, in crisis, which I think is true also. Well, Turkey's authoritarian president, Recep Erdogan, made that his big moment. And he's actually launched a massive anti-France, anti-Macron campaign. He's just going nuts against France right now, much like the Muslim world did towards Denmark a dozen years ago after they published the cartoons too. World leaders are choosing sides. Radicals in the Muslim world condemn France and Macron. Some Democrats and liberals sided with Macron. Trudeau, well, he stayed silent for 10 days, only saying something grudgingly when he was asked about it by the Bloc Québécois. And look at this atrocious tweet by the foreign minister also from Quebec. We stand in solidarity with our French friends. Turkey's recent comments about France are totally unacceptable. We must return to respectful diplomatic exchanges. But look at this, look at this, look at this. We will always stand together to defend freedom of expression with respect? Hang on. Canada will only defend freedom of expression if it's done respectfully, as in if you show respect for, in this case, Mohammed, you're fine. But if you don't, like Charlie Hebdo didn't, and presumably as Emmanuel Macron is accused of not doing, then you won't stand in solidarity with him. When did that last part get added in? Freedom of expression, with respect. What? Respect for whom? For what? Where is that in any law book or history book or Charter of Rights? Sure, you have freedom of expression, but only if you bow down to me and don't insult me or offend me or bother me. If you respect me, that is, if you do nothing that I don't want you to do, you can say whatever you like as long as it is what I like. So you can have all the freedom of speech in the world subject to whatever I say. It's like Henry Ford saying you can have a car, a Model T in any color as long as it's black. Freedom of expression with respect. I'm not surprised that came from Francois-Philippe Champagne, our foreign minister. He's so deep with communist China that he actually had a mortgage from the Chinese government bank I'm serious. So yeah, that's how they talk in China about free speech too. If you respect the Communist Party, you can have free speech with respect. In fact, the father of the Muslim girl, the father who led the mob, the mosque that led the mob itself, the Chechen murder, they all believe in freedom of speech if you show respect. Of course they do. That's all they want, for you to respect them, their beliefs, their religions, their prophet, their sensitivities, more than you respect your own freedoms, your own beliefs in freedom and secularism, France. So Francois-Philippe Champagne was actually, to be very technical and deliberate about it, he was actually siding with the murderer, because the murderer was really hung up on that with respect part, wasn't he? That's an excerpt from my daily show, the Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.